My name is James Applety, and I'm in my early 70s. But I insist everyone call me Jimmy. I stick weld without a helmet because my wife is too ugly to look at anyway. I call my debit card my government tracker, and then I wink. Except I can't wink anymore, so I do it manually with my fingers that are forever curled. And I drive a fourth-generation Ford E350 Econoline van. My toolbox is a fishing tackle box filled with only rounded-off slotted screwdrivers and rusty channel locks. When I need a Phillips screwdriver, I use my small slotted screwdriver and just jam it in there. 2 out of 4 ain't bad, I say. And then I cough 100 times. What do I do for work? Well, you want it in one sentence? What are you, in some kind of hurry? Are you one of those World Wide Web generations? I can't tell you what I do for work without telling you 3 consecutive 25-minute stories. Back in 1971, I met Daniel Moynihan in Annapolis, Maryland. I was restoring marine engines in those days, and and they asked if I knew how to change the values of adding machines. Well, I didn't, but never say no when they don't know. Henry Kissinger could eat anus underwater, and boy did he! And a young John Major was there, with a thermos full of frozen ejaculate that he called cold weather payments.
This episode of Regular Car Reviews is sponsored by Upside. Every year, we all pledge to save more and spend less, but how are you supposed to do that when you're paying inflated prices for everyday essentials like gas and groceries? But now you can get cash back with Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anybody who buys gases and groceries and dines out. Gases, why is that plural? Well, with Upside, I can get cash back on every purchase. Download the free Upside app, use my promo code RCR, and get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. All you have to do is scroll around, find something you like, and then pay as usual with a credit or debit card and follow these steps, and then follow the steps on the app and get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 more times cash back with Upside. It's just like Venmo. You can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Upside users are earning hundreds of dollars a year. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. This is the Upside app and how to use it. When we're out on the road, I'm always looking to save money, even though when you're out on the road, it's tax deductible. You scan around an area. This is the King of Prussia area of Pennsylvania. Here you can search for things like gasoline. This is Liberty Gas. Never been there. 28 cents a gallon cash back on regular. Here is a BP. That's 35 cents cash back on regular. Creed Bratton's Seafood and Steakhouse. You get 6% cash back. Here's a Starbucks that's offering 10% cash back on everything you get. Elevation Burger. Never been there. That's 22% cash back. Once again, download the free Upside app and use code RCR to get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon of gas for your first tank of gas.
This is a modified Ford E350 heavy-duty cargo van made to hotshot cargo loads anywhere in the lower 48 states at a moment's notice. What is hotshot delivery? Hotshot delivery is expedited shipping and logistics. What does that mean? That means if you have a bunch of cargo or a parcel or a piece of machinery one of the national shipping companies broke or missed a delivery date or screwed up in some way, and you're thinking, never again. Say you own a restaurant, and you need a new flat top picked up from such and such manufacturer, and you need it tomorrow, because your existing flat top broke, and tomorrow is Friday. You just can't run your restaurant with the electric range and the fryers You're expecting a full house because it's a holiday weekend and everyone and their kids are coming. You know where the new flat top is. It's in Dayton, Ohio, and your restaurant is in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania. Right now, it's Thursday night. It's 9 p.m. on a Thursday night, and you're just closing down. There's no way one of the chains can put in an order fast enough to send a truck, make invoices, blah, 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 blah. Can you go yourself and pick it up? What, are you going to not sleep all night? You've done it before. But who's going to watch the kids? And there's rain in the forecast. You going to take your truck? Can you find a big enough van in time? No. You need a Hotshot van to go get it now. And you need a service that isn't making any other stops. And you need a phone number to call that goes right to the driver, who is also the owner. It's going to be expensive, but the damage caused to your business by not being open tomorrow would cost more. That's Hotshot delivery. That's expedited shipping. This Ford E350 has an additional leaf spring for the rear that is thicker than all of the rest of the leafs. That gives this van a sick rake. Ugh, looks so mean and purposeful. The real reason is so when the van is loaded down, the rear doesn't sag. Inside are extra fuel jugs so Dylan, the owner-operator, doesn't have to stop. He has a hand-cranked transfer pump so he can top off the stock tank whenever. There's also a sleeping bag, blankets, and pillows so, if needed, he can sleep at truck stops and head out at first light, or whenever he needs a break. And then there's this paint job. No E350 looks like this. Why this paint scheme? Because Dylan is living in the Nixon era. What? Dylan is 27 years old at the time of filming. The Nixon years of the United States were from 1969 to 1974. Dylan is living as if it's the early 70s all the time, in dress, technology, and the color scheme of his van. This yellow-orange 1970s biopuke autumn is a period-correct color. It's called Ford Grabber Orange. It's from the early 1970s, but this is a 2000-era van. The steel wheels now have poverty-spec hubcaps. All black plastic pieces are painted white, like delivery vans used to be painted this way to hide pitted and cracked and damaged chrome. Instead of an LED hazard light bar, Dylan uses a vintage incandescent rotating beacon. This is for driving onto construction sites or any other place where safety rules. While on the road, Dylan takes tourist photos with 110 film, uses a word processor to type up physical invoices, and then there's his uniform that he made up himself. Most hotshot drivers show up in hoodies and jeans, and if necessary, the high-vis vest. Dylan dresses like Speedy Delivery from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, or maybe a milkman, complete with a hat. Well, it's fun to play pretend, but it also makes him money. What you see here is what they call in advertising a pattern interrupt. Someone receiving cargo is expecting to see just another white ProMaster or Dodge Cummins pulling a trailer. Not a raked grabber orange van with a throwback livery and a driver pulled out of the background of one of Mad Men's later seasons. He's tipping his hat to you and saying, "Howdy." And you're thinking, who are you? Why are you dressed like that? Oh, hey, thanks for the pallet of server racks and fans. What's up with your van? What is Mr. Ship? Hey, can I have your card? Wow. You're nice to me when you deliver my stuff. Boom. More clients. But even I had to ask Dylan, why the Nixon era? What is his fascination? To me, 1969 to 1974 was when the muscle car died, the Vietnam War pointlessly slaughtered a generation, car styling fell into the toilet, U.S. manufacturers didn't know how to tune for newly mandated emissions, and the U.S. president was a mix of snidely whiplash and pharma bro. But Dylan doesn't see it that way. The Nixon era began with the moon landing in 1969. The next year, the first microprocessor was invented, the Intel 4004, with a max clock speed of 940 kilohertz, and by 1973, clock speeds broke the megahertz barrier with the Toshiba TLCS-12 chip. In 1972, Dark Side of the Moon was first performed. with the album releasing the following year. In 1970, the first Toyota Celica was built, beginning a lineage which would eventually create the revered 4th Gen Supra. The first mobile phone call was placed in 1973, with a prototype device weighing 4.4 pounds and having a battery life of 30 minutes. While this was not a commercially available device, it did prove that a cellular network was possible. Throughout the early 1970s, automotive gasoline fuel injection began wider adoption with the Bosch D-Jectronic, which used engine RPM and intake manifold air density to meter pulsed fuel to the injectors. So, I see Dylan's point. Even though the president was a transporter mashup of Quark and Gul Dukat, a lot of landmark stuff happened during the Nixon years. It wasn't just the age of malaise. Anyway, a delivery van is a deeply recursive vehicle, just like how time folds in on itself every few years so that everything old is new again. This van says that work vehicles with garbage-level engines are evergreen. They're as American as Manifest Destiny, as globally relatable as having kids before you're ready. But there's nothing an E350 can teach you about yourself that you couldn't learn from having a parent who withheld affection growing up. It does its job. It'll do right by you. But you're not going to love this van, and it's not going to love you. The biggest reason you would ever want a Ford Econoline is you're a small business owner who wants to drive something that uses parts that aren't hard to find. And not even Ford's lousy fit and finish quality will matter because the engine and drivetrain will survive the body getting nibbled to death by rust. Most of these post-2000s have a reputation of lasting over 250,000 miles without major repairs. Oh, there'll be repairs, but generally, it will cost less than the current Transit van when those things go wrong. It's a Triton engine. It's that frickin' thing. A Triton engine, one of the worst engines ever made. Carry extra spark plugs, because this thing may send spark plugs straight through your hood. Not enough threads on them. Oh, and the spark plugs are weird. Oh, and you have to change the oil. Oh, and sometimes the timing belt eats itself inside the timing cover. Fantastic. But every single shop does know how to work on these engines. And Ford built a lot of these things, millions over the lifespan of this model line. The Econoline lasted only one more generation after this one, but that's enough to put a boatload of these back on the used car market. Because if the engine and drivetrain will last, that doesn't mean your business will. And if it's not for work or trying to get you to band gigs, what's the point of an E350? Why own this? And on purpose? And why modify it? Besides the obvious we've talked about. Well, have you ever met someone who's California sober? They talk about how they have their life together now because they don't drink hard alcohol or give their nostrils a powder-coated lining. They just do whippets and smoke that Kelly Green before blowing through a payday loan on Sheetz burritos at 3 in the morning. But there's no such thing as semi-sobriety. You can't be half in on self-improvement if you really want to improve. Moderation doesn't exist in problem spaces. But this attitude is what defined Ford for the better part of a generation. Look at us! We're making strides! Electric vehicles, small trucks, sustainable materials. But we're still going to make garbage like the Raptor. We're still going to have early 2000s GM build quality. But don't we deserve credit for coming as far as we have? Even if it's not as far as we could go. I think we deserve credit. It's basically just giving a round of applause to the F student who just barely manages a D- on a curve. But it wasn't so long ago that Ford's entire brand strategy seemed to be centered around practical work vehicles, trucks and vans that were unsexy but stayed out of the shop. But in Ford's California sobriety, we have a bunch of trucks that feel like they're virtue signaling their usefulness. You can use a Raptor as a work vehicle, but that's not what a Raptor is for. It's to be seen driving a Raptor. It's for making grandmas hurry a little faster to get out of the way. For making people regret the choice to drive European or Japanese, because Ford was the brand for all oil-stained hands. For wrench-turning Yankees and horse-wrangling Southerners alike. But everything Ford makes now feels like a costume you're supposed to wear. Yes, this is some old man yelling at cloud stuff, but everything feels so uninspired. Even as the base level of quality of the worst car they offer grows exponentially over the stuff on offer from 30 years ago, a Ford Transit van doesn't have the same ragged, weathered, hardtack dependability of an E350. Of course, this doesn't mean the E350 is good. It just means it works without having to mean anything else. An E350 is a van. You put stuff in it that destroys the interior. You drive it through places that dents the exterior. Because allowing an E350 to become like some sort of personal use vehicle or an overlander opens up a person to all sorts of uncomfortable assumptions. No, I'm not here to whisk your kid away to Neverland Ranch. No, I don't live in this down by the river. I am a work van. I am part of the American echo chamber that sounds the choral refrain of the mythic blue-collar hymn, which is, eat a dick and move out of the left lane, I'm trying to get this bread. There's an ideological purity of the Econoline vans because, unlike an F-Series pickup, which has a similar pragmatic function, no one is ever going to claim an E-Series van as part of their identity. It's just part of the job. Unless, of course, you're Dylan. Dylan, an unfailingly polite unicorn of a man whose dedication to the aesthetic of Nixon's America is commendable. If your favorite act of cosmetic adventure is turning back the clock to the Arab oil embargo. But the van and its accompanying aesthetic work together to elevate Dylan's brand. It's a work van that bolsters a work identity. He's sacrificing creature comforts for practicality. The seat is ripped, the inside's covered in dust, the sound system sounds like crap, not that you'd be able to enjoy it because there's no sound deadening in here anyway, all you hear is your stuff. You're more likely to listen to a bunch of new mystery sounds to drive you crazy. And when Dylan bought this, the body was rotted out and there was a gigantic hole in the floor. But otherwise, this Econoline was roadworthy, which probably isn't saying much, but when your vehicle is tied to your business, the bare minimum is all you really need. The bare minimum makes the most sense. Think about it. You start your own business because you went to trade school or you learned under an apprenticeship. And you think, hey, it's a good thing to be my own boss, right? Gets me into the business world. It gets me a seat at the table. But having a seat at the table doesn't mean anything if you're not getting served. By the same token, being your own boss doesn't mean anything if the business isn't there to sustain you. And yet, that's the risk. And for some, the risk is worth it. It's worth sometimes being at the risk of elements that are beyond your control. Fluctuating markets, inconsistent demand, temperamental customers, supply chain issues, deals falling through, people flaking out. You get sick, that's lost money, and you don't get paid time off. You're not getting benefits, and you're paying quarterlies and doing your own estimates, and God forbid if you forget to carry the one because the IRS knows what you owe, but damned if they're going to tell you how much it is unless there's a delinquency letter. But then there's a bunch of positives to being a small business owner. You choose when you wake up. You choose when you take time off. You may not necessarily have a lot of guidance on what you should be doing, but the choices are ultimately yours. And there's power in being accountable to only yourself. You can choose to follow your passion. You have the opportunity to have creativity and flexibility, develop relationships in your community and grow your brand. No cutting through bureaucratic red tape to get your ideas approved. Just pivot and push. And the financial risk means potential for great financial rewards. Retiring early, having equity in something, and leaving behind a legacy that isn't just a son who spent his bequest on Fruit Loops flavored vape cartridges.
Renaldi Kline.
Hey, it's us! You forgot about us!
No, you forgot about us, but now we're back. You know, they tried to shut us down back when everyone was getting sick a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there were people saying some stuff, I personally didn't believe it. But some of the people, they make up stories about things.
Look, they said it was spreading like prison butt cheeks, so you gotta close like convent legs.
I got some duct tape, kinda does the same thing.
But you know who got 4 thumbs and don't listen to lockdown measures?
Oh,
This guy, because
This
of a
guy.
birth defect.
This guy right here.
I don't talk about my birth defect. I got 4 thumbs. We used to work in an office building, pushing paper 9 to 5 for minimum wage. Now we're our own bosses.
Look at us now.
Pay quarterly taxes? What do I look like? Some kind of asshole?
What are you, like J.P. Morgan and Chase the Cheddar?
Oh, we work very hard. Very hard.
Hard. I pronounce things in varying degrees.
People say, Renaldi Kline, why are your prices so high? Because we provide a high-value service. You want New York quality? You're gonna pay LA prices.
Don't worry.
You let us worry about the hole. How deep, how wide, how much you're gonna owe, and how long you're gonna have to pay it before knees start getting capped.
Bushwick.
If you weren't between a rock and a hard place, you wouldn't be looking at us to grease those corners to get you out. And nobody greases up something hard like Renaldi Kline. New York style
excavation. You want a hole? You want a hole? We'll dig you a hole.
We'll dig you a hole. You want a hole? It's coming. You know? Are we
Bushwick?
Are we bonded? Because the only bond that I need is my piece of deal in your mother's sweet ace.
You want some bondage? I'll give you some babushka goosh.
Renaldi Kline. You want to see the full version of this ad? You want to see Renaldi Kline uncut?
You want to see my Bushwick?
You
getting tired of this joke? Because I'm not.
Check your mother's camera roll. How about it? You know, I'll tell you something else. I mean, I don't even know what part of the 5 boroughs we're from. We might not even be from the 5 boroughs. We might be from, you know...
We might be from Schenectady, and I'm putting on an accent for you because I don't like my past, and I live in a continuous carousel of revisionist history.
So call Renaldi Kline.
Call Renaldi Kline.
Renaldi Kline.
Authentic New York style excavation.
Renaldi Kline.
Renaldi Kline.
We got a van.
We got a van.
A new van. That's very old.